Good morning, world. It is a beautiful Saturday morning, and I am walking home from the bank because it is too beautiful a day to take a car or a motorcycle. So I'm walking, and I wanted to talk a little bit about something I've been thinking a lot about the last couple days. I've been praying about a lot of stuff, seeking some clarity from God about some direction and some decisions we have to make, and just kind of praying and asking God to speak to me, so I can know no matter what the decision is or the adversity or stuff that comes from it, at least we can kind of look back and lean on the fact that God was clear in how He directed us. So what I always do is I try to find some kind of direction in God's Word, even though there may be a certain passage or specific passage, whether it's in the Old Testament or New, that God is not specifically speaking to my life in that passage. In other words, for me this week it was in Jeremiah 29. Jeremiah 29 is not about my life, but I can gain a lot of insight and some understanding and even clarity from that. So I was thinking about a couple verses in Jeremiah 29. One of my buddies, one of our pastors at our church, shared these verses in our meeting on Thursday, so I've been thinking a lot about it. But Jeremiah 29, most people, when they think about the passage or the chapter, automatically go to verse 11 and start thinking about the famous verse, the one that we always use to encourage ourselves, thinking about God's plans for us. And so what is God thinking about when He thinks about me? And we need to kind of back up a little bit and understand the whole context of the chapter. But anyways, Jeremiah is prophesying to the people of Israel before they're taken away into captivity into Babylon. And there's a lot of warnings earlier in the book about Israel and their sin. And eventually they are indeed carried away into Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar. And so they're in captivity. And in chapter 29, it's pretty fascinating. God sends them a message from Jeremiah into captivity, into Babylon, with a message for them, sort of instructions for what they're supposed to be doing in Babylon. And think about it for a second. What we would be doing or thinking or feeling if a foreign nation, a foreign superpower, especially in a time when things are so volatile and hot with Russia and North Korea and anywhere else, but imagine being invaded by a foreign country, and what we would want to do or think as Americans as far as escaping, winning a war, winning our freedom, returning to our country, getting all our stuff back, whatever that is. And I'm sure that the people of Israel had the same notions, thoughts, wanted to get out of Babylon, go home. And so they're in exile in Babylon, and they get a message from God. And basically the message is this: don't try to get out of captivity. It's not going to work. You're going to be there for the next 70 years. And how difficult that message would be from God, that in the middle of the circumstances and the situations you're in, that those circumstances and situations aren't going to change in your lifetime, but they're going to change in your kid's lifetime, or maybe even your grandchildren's lifetime. To spend 70 years in captivity is a pretty incredible thought. And so in chapter 29, I believe it's in verses 4 and 5, he basically gives them some instructions for here's what I want you to do in captivity. I want you to build homes and live in them. I want you to take wives and have kids, sons and daughters. I want you to plant gardens. I want you to eat the fruit of your gardens. I want you to take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage and have grandkids. And here's the cool part. He says, and I want you to be fruitful and I want you to multiply there. And so the message is to his people in captivity, in their horrible circumstances, in the circumstances they want to avoid and get out of, remove themselves from. And he says, I want you to do all those things there in Babylon, in the place of your captivity. And then it gets even crazier. He says, I want you to seek the welfare of Babylon. And I want you to pray for the welfare of Babylon. I want you to pray for their prosperity, for their peace, for their good. And that word for welfare or prosperity or peace, it's a word that most of us know pretty well. It's the Hebrew word shalom, which we would get our word for peace. So imagine that. Imagine being carried away into North Korea by a crazy dictator, and then being told by God, hey, while you spend time there for the next 70 years, I want you to pray for North Korea. I want you to build houses in North Korea. I want you to have kids and grandkids in North Korea and plant gardens in North Korea and eat fruit in North Korea. And I want you to pray for the welfare and the blessing of North Korea, because you're going to be there for 70 years. And your welfare is directly connected to the welfare of North Korea. Your peace is directly connected to the peace of North Korea. That's the message for Israel. And then after that is when we get the famous verse, Jeremiah 29:11, where he says, for I know the thoughts that I have for you. Good thoughts for your welfare, your peace, your prosperity, to give you a future, to give you a hope, to give you an expected end. And as I was looking at that verse this morning, not only trying to understand it and translate it well, but understand it exactly as God's saying it. And so basically, from what I can gather, looking at the structure of it in Hebrew, my paraphrase, which not a paraphrase, it's my translation, would be this. He says, the plans, the thoughts, and the purposes that I'm thinking, planning, and purposing for you right now, the ones that I'm declaring to you right now, I have known them. They're not new. I've planned them a long time ago. And I'm just declaring them to you now. And these plans, they're for peace. They're for a future and a hope, to give you an expectation at the end. And so as I thought about that, as I've been praying through these things, what God is saying to me is not necessarily the specific details of my life, whether we sell our home, buy a new home, move here, move there, whatever we do. My future and my hope and my expectation is not connected to where I live, but it's connected to the same thing that the future, the hope, and the expectation that the people of Israel were connected to in Jeremiah 29, because his promise to them was, I'll bring you back here. And that's where your future and your hope's going to be, when I bring you back here. But even then, their future and their hope wasn't based on their circumstances of what would happen 70 years later when he brought them back here. And if you want to spend some time reading and looking at something really cool, the connection between Jeremiah chapter 29 and Daniel chapter 9 is pretty incredible. But the whole point of all of this is that the future and the hope that he was giving them and offering them after he brought them back to their land after 70 years of captivity is the same future and the same hope that he offers to you and me today. And it's not prosperity, it's not health, it's not money, it's not a good home, it's not a great job. The future and the hope and the latter end is Christ. That was the future and the hope of the people of Israel. And it's the future and the hope for my life, and it's the future and the hope for your life. So I was just thinking about that this morning. Wanted to encourage you with that. I don't know what you're going through. If you're going through stuff like I'm going through, and life is great, details are great. In my life, there's always adversity, whether it's health with my family or anything else. There's decisions that we have to make that aren't always easy. Sometimes there's lack of clarity. Sometimes there's just adversity. And so as I think through that and pray through that, I pray that that you'll find maybe some of the same encouragement that I found, that Christ is the answer, Christ is the hope, and Christ is the peace that God offers us. He's the welfare, that he offers us, the same welfare and peace, the shalom that he offered to his people while they were in captivity. And so, you know what, that peace and that hope and the future that God gives to you may be in the midst of adversity. It may be in the midst of captivity. It might be in the midst of sickness. It might be in the middle of cancer, or it could be in the middle of wealth. It could be in the middle of health. There's no guarantee or promise for either one of those things. The promise is Jesus, and the future is Jesus. So just want to encourage you guys with this. Hopefully that'll be a blessing to you, and that'll give you a reason to get through the rest of your day and get up tomorrow. And if you still need a reason after that, I mean, go outside. It's absolutely gorgeous. God has created another day for us to enjoy and for us to worship him in. And there are so many reasons to worship him. There's so many reasons to rejoice in today because of Jesus, because of Christ, because of the hope we have in him. So you guys have a great Saturday. And if you don't have anywhere to worship tomorrow, you can always join us at Reverb Church. We have worship experiences at 9 and 11, and we've got a big day planned for tomorrow and a surprise that I can't tell you on Facebook, but trust me, you will want to be there. So I hope to see you tomorrow, 9 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning at 245 Meadowlark Lane in St. Augustine, Florida. We meet at Passetti Bay Middle School. You guys have a great day, and I look forward to sharing with you again later.